This is the chase. This is what you're trying to get to. And I know what you're thinking. You need speed. Or you need risk. But what if I told you you're wrong?
So let me ask you an interesting question. Of 30-year-olds and people that are less than 30 years old in the United States of America, take a guess, how many of those people, what percentage of people under the age of 30 have a net worth of more than $1 million? Okay? This is how many. I don't know if this number impresses you or if you're shocked or whatnot, but that's a very low number. I mean, I think a lot of people would probably have expected it to be a little bit more than 1.1%. So do you remember in my last video when I told you where I worked back when I was a financial advisor, and some of the people I worked with, some of my colleagues made, $500,000 a year, $500,000 a year, and there were some who in some years would make north of $1 million in 1 year. So let's take that information and now let's juxtapose that against the newer person starting out in that company. I personally had years, well, let me start. I never had a year when I was a financial advisor that I made $500,000 a year, not even close. And I had years where I was struggling to make $35,000 a year. So we have the lower bounds and we have the upper bounds. So this might look like, imagine like a scatter plot. And so for example, we took a teacher's salary. It might look something like this. And so this is the distribution of the incomes of, let's say, teachers in the United States of America. This represents it. This isn't exactly what it is, but let's call it a representation of what that would look like. And so with something like this, you would see newer teachers are obviously going to make lower incomes, but then the highest amount of incomes are going to be not that high. If comparing this to, for example, a doctor, a lawyer, or someone who makes higher income. And so mostly teachers are going to be making under $100,000 a year in the first 15 years of them working in their job. But you will see some outliers. For example, these dots here. Now these outliers of teachers that might make like $300,000 a year or more, they're likely going to be like university professors. They have a very, very specific understanding of maybe a specialty that they work in, but it's an outlier. So it's very far off from the dispersion of the salaries that are mostly under it, right? So you're not going to get many teachers making $300,000 plus a year. Now let's look at doctors, for example. With teachers, where the outlier was in the $300,000 a year area, well, with doctors, that's the dispersion of most of the salaries. So they're all sitting tightly within this, let's say, $200,000 to $400,000 area. Now with doctors, you're going to see some outliers that might be in the $1 million plus range. And what you'll see with both the teachers and the doctors is it kind of goes up and to the right. The longer you're doing this one thing, the more money you end up making. And that's generally what the majority of all Americans' incomes look like. They start lower, they get higher as they get better at what they do. They gain more knowledge. They specialize in certain areas. They get into higher roles. All of these things, they take time. But these days, a lot of people, what they want is instant gratification of being a millionaire. They want it as fast as they can have it. And obviously there are people that have achieved these things and you see them online and on YouTube. I'm not saying they're all lying, because a lot of them have achieved these results very quickly in their lives. But let's look at insurance agents, for example. This might be the dispersion of incomes for insurance agents. You're gonna see a lot of very low incomes, especially at the start, and they kind of stay quite low, and then eventually they get to the point where if you've been an insurance agent for long enough, you will make good money. You establish a network of clients, word of mouth, referrals, these things snowball, and eventually you can make good money. But at the start, there's gonna be actually some decent outliers in the insurance area who pretty quickly make good money, because this is a sales-based business. It's not like being a doctor. You start a practice and suddenly you're making millions of dollars. That's not necessarily what a doctor would do, but with an insurance agent, that kind of can happen. You can meet the right person at the right time, make a huge sale, and make crazy amounts of money. But again, this is the outlier. So, all right, why am I telling you this? So first off, I don't want you to think that Everyone around you has tons of money and you don't. That's very much likely not the case unless you hang out with a bunch of rich people. The people who you probably think are really wealthy, they might be, but a lot of times it's because they're either an outlier or they're in a field where you make a lot of money. If you don't happen to be in a field like that, and even if you do, there's a good chance that the person that you're thinking of right now, they're not quite as wealthy as you think they are, especially if they're under the age of 30. So I don't know, maybe that makes you feel better about yourself, I'm not sure. But the career that you've chose is going to, of course, have a huge impact on how you build wealth. But the good news here is if you're in a career, kind of like a teacher that has a dispersion of income that's kind of tight, and that's all within, let's say, under $100,000, especially when you're starting out, you can still build wealth and you can still become a millionaire over time. It got super bright out here. Oh my God. Sorry, hold on. It's like 2 in the afternoon in the Philippines right now. It's hot. It's super hot out here. I don't know why I'm doing this outside. Okay, let's start with hard numbers about what works when wealth building. So the Spectrum Group did a study and they found that for those who are 40 years old and under, only 12% of people were millionaires that were in spaces that are considered aggressive, like let's say cryptocurrency and startups and things like that. The other 88% of those people, they built their wealth generally through these 4 things. They either had a high income profession, consistent savings or investing, gradual asset appreciation. So for example, they invest in real estate and those assets gain value, and then some level of family support. So Fidelity actually had a Millionaire Outlook study, and guess what percentage of people said that they actually earn their wealth the old-fashioned way, which is by like methodically saving over long periods of time. 77% of those who had $1 million or more say that they just did it the old-fashioned way. Slow and steady investing over long periods of time. They didn't go fast, they didn't get too aggressive, they didn't do anything crazy. They used time, and eventually they got to the point where they had a lot of money. And according to TD Ameritrade research, guess how long it took for the average millionaire to get to millionaire status? Well, it's 28 years. Now I know exactly what you're thinking. Okay, how about I just take more risk, right? That's gonna get me there sooner. Hold up. The University of Chicago found that those who swing between conservative and overly aggressive investment styles, they reach millionaire status 7.2 years slower than those who just invest moderately. So if you're trying to hold your money and then get super aggressive and hold your money and get super aggressive, well, on average, that doesn't seem to work. So according to research from William Bernstein, a 25-year-old who invests in just passive investing strategies like low-cost index funds, if they invested $10,000 annually, they have a 97% chance that they're going to make it to retirement and they will become a millionaire by then. So they have a 97% chance of getting there. But in the same situation, that same 25-year-old who's being overly aggressive in their investments, it drops to 13% chance that they're gonna get that millionaire status by that time. The difference is, there is a chance that they will get there significantly faster, but there's only a 13% chance that they're gonna actually get to retirement and have that millionaire status, where there's a 97% chance, given the same scenario, if you just invested in low-cost index funds over that long-term period of time. Which one are you? Do you want to take aggressive risk and potentially only hit that 13% chance? Or do you want the 97% chance that you're gonna actually make it? I'm absolutely dying out here. It's too hot. All right, we're gonna go inside. Let's get out of here. Okay. Man, I was gonna film in here, and it's so echoey. I don't know about this. I know what's next. We've talked about investing and high risk and investing in stocks and stock market and things like that. Well, you're thinking like, hey, what about real estate, right? I'm sure that I could just invest real estate, flip some houses, and that's gonna do it for me. I'm not gonna deter you and say real estate's bad or anything. That's not what this is about. This is just about the averages and the facts about what it's like to try to build wealth. That being said, the average house flip's gross profit was $67,000 before expenses. This is according to Adam Data Solutions. And Reality Track found that 28% of flipped houses either don't make any money or they end in a loss after accounting for expenses. What's interesting is that geography actually has a role in this. There can be huge disparities in income between those who live in, for example, the Northeast versus the West. In the Northeast, the average return on a house flip was 27%, but in the West, it was only 18%. And according to the National Association of Home Realtors, actually, I found this one really interesting. So on average, 62% of those who are new home flippers, they underestimate their expenses by about 27%. Sorry, not 27%, 23%. And that entirely wipes out the profit, their entire profit margin.
Sorry, but obviously, yeah, I'm not outside anymore and it's nighttime now. I had to take a little break, but we're back. So to end up this part about house flipping. So here's the thing with house flipping. Again, according to Adam Data Solutions, there's a significantly higher chance to succeed as a house flipper if you have some type of experience with real estate, with construction, if you're in the industry. They found that those who have experience within that industry, at least 5 years of experience, they have a 36% higher profit margin when they compared it to amateur investors that don't have any experience in the industry. In fact, experienced flippers have a 62% lower chance of losing money on a flip. I've said a lot here, but this just goes back to the fact that having some experience in the field can help you make more money. And of all the things I've said in this, you can decide which person are you. I mean, look, most of you watching this right now, you probably already have a career. But for those of you who don't, you can decide if you want to go into a career that has a better dispersion of incomes, all maybe over $100,000 a year. You could try to make it one of those professions like an insurance type agent, a profession that has the ability to make a lot of money starting off, but unfortunately that has a lot of lower incomes. And for example, YouTube, what I'm doing right now, content creation, this is one of those. Take a guess how much money I made in the last 365 days. I'm going to tell you this to prove a point, because a lot of people that do this, they don't make a lot of money. Yes, you can make millions of dollars. Yes, it can happen overnight. Yes, it could probably change your life within the next 1 year, 2 years of just starting a YouTube channel. It can happen, but they're outliers. I made $4,159.18 in the past 365 days from YouTube. It's not life-changing money. It's not enough to pay rent. It's not enough to think maybe, save some extra money per year. Of course, it's very good for that, but it's not life-changing money. And it can help me build wealth, but it's not gonna get me there fast. It's not gonna make me rich, but it can help me become a millionaire over a long-term period of time. If you're someone who's in or going into a profession that already has a high dispersion of income over, let's say, a few $100,000 a year, congratulations to you. You're not gonna have any problem building wealth. And now, to the majority of you, those of you who are in normal jobs making normal money, probably under $100,000 a year. And this should make you feel good about yourself. Wealth is not about shortcuts for the majority of people that have made wealth, that have gotten to over millionaire status, let's call it. It's not about shortcuts. It's not about taking excessive risk. It's built on behaviors that anyone can adopt. It's patience, it's consistency, and it's understanding the power of time. Even if you don't have a high-paying job, if you're in a normal salary job, if you're not an outlier in your field, you can still build wealth. It's consistently investing and it's managing your finances properly. At least that's how the majority of people build wealth. So go out and build some wealth.